So everything digital, it's, the rate of change is, I gave pretty much everything a go. Almost from one day missed onwards, attendance drops.
Thank you. In line with Maclean's College Reading for Enjoyment initiative that we've kind of started up, what book are you currently reading, sir? Could you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, I'm reading a book by a former All Black, Sir John Kirwan. It's called All Blacks Don't Cry. The idea being that he suffered through some terrible mental health episodes when he was an All Black. In fact, when he was playing Test rugby on the field, he was freaking out, is how he described it. The book tracks through his lapse into a state where he couldn't function, couldn't get out of bed, and then the support he got from his family, seeking professional help, having to work to find somebody who he related to and could give him the help that he needed. And now he works in the area of mental health with the Ministry of Health, and working with young people and others actually who are needing support and guidance. And he sees himself as a bit of an example in that he looked big and successful and wealthy, and had all of the world at his fingertips, but actually he was in crisis. So he's puts that example out there for others.
That's actually really sweet, of the way the book's written. And how would you say reading that book has impacted you in your worldviews?
Well, for me, it just helps fill the picture about mental health. I think most of us grow up, and as we have small encounters either with our own health issues or maybe others close to us, we build up a view of who's affected and how it plays out. And of course, his journey is quite different from most, so it just helps to, fill in the whole idea that actually it can be quite different for different people, and how you deal with it is usually quite different as well. What works for one won't work for all. But really, the most important thing is, understand that it's not that unusual. You do need to seek help, and no matter who you are and how sort of big and strong and tough and bulletproof you are, you might be somebody who needs to reach out and seek help.
That's actually a really good advice, even for any of us here as well, students who are slowly, for me and Nicole, we're almost graduating, and so that's really nice advice for us going into the wider world, and even for our younger students to realize that everything can sometimes not be okay. Thank you, sir. With that, with the Extracurricular Expo that we recently had early in the term, how would you describe the extracurricular scene here at our school and how it's developing?
It was a great activity. The Expo's been going for a few years now. I love it, seeing the senior students marketing their activities and being so proud of the groups that they run and manage. It's a thriving scene. There's so many different things that students can get involved in. It's great, and I love the fact that there's not the stereotypical just sport, drama, leadership. There's this whole layer of other activities, creative pursuits and quite niche activities that people can get involved in and find what they're into. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. When you were in fact back in high school and doing college, what was your favorite extracurricular activity?
You're going back a long way.
Yeah.
There weren't so many things on offer when I was a student. I got into the drama scene. I actually performed in a couple of school plays. I was on the debating team. I did debating, but mostly I did sports, rugby, cricket, basketball, athletics, cross country. Yeah, I gave pretty much everything a go.
That's quite an inspiration, to give things a shot. Recently in your current life, have you taken any of those extracurriculars over with you throughout life?
I played rugby into my mid-30s until my body said that's enough, this is getting too painful. I played cricket into my mid-20s, and actually up until very recently I did Masters Athletics. I did about 14 seasons of Masters Athletics. From after I turned 40, and I'm just dealing with an injury at the moment, but that's been a pretty serious pursuit of mine the last decade or so.
No, that sounds quite nice to have something that you can find enjoyment in outside of work and school life.
You've got to have it. Going back to that John Kirwan book,
Yep.
You've got to have the balance, you've got to have an outlet, and pretending I'm young running down a race, an athletics track is how I sort of have that release.
Yeah, let's go. What are some challenges that you faced during the time being here a principal at Maclean's? Is there any more wisdom you'd like to share with the students of Maclean's?
Challenges? You mean in running the school, or sort of personal challenges?
Personal challenges or any hiccups you've had along the way that you didn't expect to have as a principal?
Plenty of hiccups on the way. I mean, nobody was expecting COVID, so I became the principal here at the start of 2018. So 18, 19, I guess you'd call fairly ordinary school years in that, you know, we had the annual cycle of exams and everything else that takes place on the curriculum and extracurricular scene. And then, of course, COVID came along and flipped everything on its head. So, yeah, that was really testing. You know, we've had some personal tragedies on staff as well. They've been really tough times for everybody to get through. Actually, and students as well. You know, sometimes you have to deal with families and students who have gone through some pretty grim times. Those things are challenging. Right now, it's role growth is a big challenge for the school, and therefore having enough classrooms and teachers to accommodate all of the students. Yeah, that's probably enough of the challenges.
That's quite a few. Yeah, you've got your work cut out for you currently. With that, as you talked about COVID-19 and stuff like that, what are some challenges or maybe even opportunities for Macleans now that it's all behind us, or most of it's behind us anyway?
Well, one thing we've talked about, in fact we've already talked about reading for pleasure, is you know, what we learned through COVID was that we can do remote learning, and you know, teachers need to have a good Google Classroom, and that teachers can be in contact with students kind of 24/7. And it's how do we pair that back and take the good things, but also be mindful of traditional teaching and learning techniques that are really effective. So that's our focus on now. You know, we want students to write with a pen, write in a book, read physical books, but still having access to Google Classroom. So there's support is there, and you know, the notes are posted, and students can look at past exams and those other things that are available. But teaching and learning is quite a personal, I think it's an interpersonal activity, and I think if you wonder about your good teachers, they'll be teachers that you've built a learning relationship with, and they can explain things in a way that you get. So for me, it's what happens in the classroom, you know, that really, really matters. And although the devices are everywhere and we all have our laptops and phones, I think bringing the teaching back into the classroom, that sense of everybody working together, supporting one another, everybody bringing some knowledge that can contribute, asking and answering questions, that's when we'll get the most out of our classroom experience.
Yeah, that actually, that sounds quite like a nice way of like looking at education for the future and seeing everything actually being integrated nicely, old and new.
Well, here's the thing. I'll cut in. Sorry, that's not a question, but you know, artificial intelligence is a big thing at the moment, and everything digital. It's, you know, the rate of change it's accelerating. You know, what matters most, I think, in life is, you know, personal relationships, and I think what's going to matter for you guys as you go off into the workforce is EQ. You know, you're all bright. You've got IQ. What will set you apart and help you enjoy your work experience will be your ability to get on with others. So for me, it's EQ, and you don't learn EQ looking at your laptop screen. You build EQ by interacting with others, you know, talking to your teacher, talking to your classmates, group activities, extracurricular, leading your extracurricular activity. That's the stuff that will really give you the boost and set you on a successful path.
Yeah, I mean, having those leadership qualities quite early on from school, being able to learn tiny bits on how to communicate with people really do help set you up slowly. Like from junior years, I couldn't really speak to anyone. Now I'm here speaking with you, sir. But as you mentioned with all ChatGPT and artificial intelligence, recently there has been a rise of the use of it in general among students to more efficiently complete their assignments and homework tasks. What are your thoughts on this, and are we doing anything to try and prevent this as a school?
It's a big deal in schools. I'm on a committee with the Ministry of Education looking at the authenticity of the work being done in NCEA. And, well, that's not the whole purpose of the committee, it's an NCEA committee, but this is a current topic of interest, is how do we make sure that the work being handed in is authentic? It's the student's own work. Because the use of ChatGPT is rife, and it's quite often very difficult to prove which bits of work were done by a student and which bits had the assistance from the technology. So, yeah, the issue is how do you solve it?
Yeah.
Well, the only way to really solve it is to put the devices away completely and hand a pen and a paper to a student and, say, tell me what you know, or to do a speech and tell me what you know, or to create a piece of, practical work or artwork in front of the teacher in class without taking anything away. So it does really restrict the way, students can work and assessment can be done. Yeah. That's the only way really to get around ChatGPT.
With assessments that can be done at home with some students, how do you determine whether a student is truly that knowledgeable and can write similar things to what an AI could provide?
Yeah, so what teachers should do is collect in-class work. So you can get a gauge on, okay, where's the level of writing with the student, and what's your grasp of the language and the knowledge and the topics in this class. And then if overnight something is handed in that's radically different, superior, then there's going to be question marks raised as to who did that work.
Yeah, quite.
The alternative that people are trying to think about is, okay, what are the kinds of assessments or questions that you can ask that ChatGPT won't know?
No.
I don't know if you can think of, questions where you won't be able to source them. Very creative, very new. Unfortunately, I think ChatGPT is probably advancing so quickly that it will probably pull something together and probably invent an answer for you that's quite good too, even with innovative and kind of radical creative questions.
Yeah, that is quite terrifying to look at that reality that most of our creative industry might be falling because of it. But yeah, if we move back on to more things centered around Maclean's College and you as our principal, which cornerstone do you believe our school is most proud of? Is it our Whanau house, our extracurriculars, or our academia?
Well, we're proud of them all, but I think what sets Maclean's apart is the Whanau house system. There's no school that has a Whanau house system like this. There are a couple of schools who've been built where they have a common space and a shared area and a bit like a house system as we know it, but there's none that have 8 separate buildings with the common space, the kitchen area, the lockers, and then the classrooms attached. And it means that our school can operate in a way that other big schools just can't, because we have that smaller school within the school. You guys have that place that you can come back to and feel that sense of belonging with maybe 300, 350 other students, despite the fact that we're approaching 3,000. And I think that's awesome. You have an identity that's separate within the school, linked to the character that your house is named after, your own colour, your own house leader, your own attributes that you build up, and I think that's what makes us special.
Do you think the Whanau house system impacts the Year 9s more or our Year 13s more?
Good question. It's really important for the transition into high school. If you were a 12 or 13-year-old coming to Maclean's and you were just let loose on a big campus, going from one end to the other without the house system would be really terrifying. I mean, it's scary enough anyway. But I think being able to come and settle into a house is, smooths that transition, makes it an easier task to settle in and to find your place and where you belong and to connect with a group of friends. And then those initial weeks meeting peer support and going to camp, I think, helps all of that. But then, of course, by Year 13, you've found your group, you've had 4 to 5 years in with your house, you're very familiar, it's been like coming into your own lounge and sitting down and feeling really relaxed.
They truly become Whanau.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea, is it's your extended Whanau.
With the Whanau house system, do you see any ways Year 13s could take it outside of the school and implement it either into uni or their workforce?
Wow. Possibly. I haven't given that any thought. What I know happens is that there is a Maclean's network beyond school, so it probably doesn't maybe just relate to the house structure, but I know at university and then just in the East Auckland community, former Maclean students still know each other well and keep in touch.
No, that's sweet, yeah. Yep. Before you were talking about how we've increased from about 2,000 students to 3,000, borderline now, you talk a lot about the attendance rates in Maclean's College. Why is it so important that we maintain all of these attendance rates and keeping them high?
Have you been listening in school assembly?
I have. I was just wanting to reiterate.
Oh, well done you, because I do wonder if anybody ever listens in school assembly, if I'm just up there amusing myself. No, so
About the smaller details.
Yeah, like the small finicky more details.
the statistics.
Do you have it to share?
Well, so pre-COVID, our attendance rate was close to 96% on average. So you get an average attendance rate across the year, and we can print out the data here, and the ministry also tracks it with us. Since COVID, it's been 91 thereabouts, and the year 9s always have better attendance than the year 13s. They're young and keen, and in fact it's almost just a line like this, you know, the year 9s, they're sitting at 97%, and the year 10s at 96, 95, 94, and you get to the year 13s and they're sort of nudging 90% or slightly below. Boys and girls, similar attendance rates, and then we break it down by ethnicity as well. Asian students have the best attendance. Yeah. European, Pacific and Māori are lower. So there's layers to it. You asked in there, why is it important?
Like any smaller details, like we know you talk about that coming to school allows you to learn and be there for the class and take in the information one-on-one.
Yep.
So is there anything
the Ministry of Education have done quite a lot of, not just the Ministry, quite a lot of research in this about what is the impact of not coming to school, and they've found that almost from 1 day missed onwards, attendance drops. So there's some pretty strong empirical evidence that shows that attendance matters for attainment. Now, of course, you'll all know exceptions. You'll all know somebody who's missed a lot of school and still got A grades. Yeah. But on average, the more you are away from school, the lower your grades. There's another aspect for me, and that's just habit. You know, getting up and going to school if you're a bit tired or you're a bit sleepy or hungry or whatever it is, you need to push through and get to school. That's just the habit of being resilient, of fulfilling obligations, of just getting on with life. And I think attending school is a mirror of that, about how you approach life.
No, that's it's quite a good thing to have consistent with being able to get up and push yourself. Additionally, with your perspective as a principal, because we sometimes may be able to ask that from teachers, but from you specifically, what are your thoughts regarding the whole country's slow decline in student attendance? And do you think the country's decline in attendance might affect us here at Maclean's as well? Like the culture we have in New Zealand regarding our attendance?
Possibly, yes. So the decline in attendance nationally is terrible, because like I said before, the more students are away from school, the lower the grade. So we know that there are a lot of students whose learning, their qualification has been impacted by the fact they're not at school. Also this habit forming that I mentioned, they are not forming good habits. In fact, they're probably thinking that opting out of things is perfectly normal, and that's not going to set them up for success in life. And that means that we've got a generation coming through who aren't going to be as well educated, they're not going to have the habits, and that's a bad place to go for the country. Will it affect us? Well, we're a little bit of a microcosm here that does their own thing, because I know there are schools nearby us that don't operate the way we do. If I wanted to brag, I'd say, we have higher standards and better achievement, and, we have our way of doing things at Maclean's that attracts people to school. Parents, they want to move to Maclean's zone to attend, so their children can attend school here. So maybe we can keep doing our thing the way we do it and not be impacted by the rest of the country.
I definitely think all of us can agree Maclean's has its own unique culture here, and that's probably why it thrives so nicely. That's pretty much all our questions. Do we have any additional ones? No? In saying that, thank you so much for your time. We actually learned a lot of valuable information from just hearing the advice you speak about, and seeing, especially with the books, how you take so much information from what you read and you apply it to your daily life. So thank you again, sir, for letting us interview you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Enjoy it.